So, Nina Turner, or as I like to call her, Auntie Nina, because that's just what she reminds me of. And some of you know exactly what I mean. Just the realness that she's associated with, the powerful, just the amount of rightful entitlement she has as far as inserting her voice as the only sane voice as a Black woman in an issue of race, progressive politics, how the Democratic Party has taken advantage of Black people, and how the Republican Party has been no better in that regard, things like that. That's why I call her Auntie Nina, because she just reminds you of that aunt that you have that just is outspoken no matter where she's at, who she's with, what she's doing. You know, you bring her to the barbecue, you bring her around your friends, you bring her around your Black friends, your white friends, your rich friends, your poor friends, all the friends. She's gonna say the same thing she would have said if she was in the house. So Auntie Nina went on CNN this morning, and of course, as always, they tried her. They weren't being rude to her, but they always put Nina in these positions where they say something regarding race or regarding the Democratic Party or regarding Bernie Sanders, things that she is closely associated with, things that she talks about regularly on Twitter and otherwise. And they try and basically make it about Trump, in my opinion, to see if she'll sit there and not say anything. They'll try and say it's about the Republican Party to see if she'll sit there and say and not say anything, or even, try and basically boost or uplift the Democratic Party in a way that's disingenuous and see if she'll not say anything. And let me just say, very, very, very rarely does Nina Turner fall into rhetorical traps. She always comes out on top. And this is yet another example of that. Go ahead and take a look at this clip.
A person who is dividing us and who himself is injecting this into the country to live up again and coming out again. And we haven't seen it be this bad in recent time till the president has really made this a race issue, whether it's about African Americans. Certainly he's doing it all over the board with immigrants, but we need to have this conversation.
I cannot. Well, I just can't. 1984, 1980, right. Gucci just a few days ago. This is not about President Donald Trump. This is about racism in the United States of America. Congresswoman, I hear you, but on this, we're not blaming President Trump.
I'm saying that he has divided this country.
No, let me just say this.
He is using race as an
I am
issue.
not going to continue to let politicians use this man as the excuse to deal with racism in this country. It's been going on for far too long in the United States of America. We need some real truth and reconciliation. Yes, President Donald Trump is a racist. There is no doubt about it. But as we have seen, Democrats delve in racism as well. We got to stop making this about who's a Republican, who's a Democrat. I want to know who's a humanitarian. That's right. I want to know who's going to stand up for people's lives, starting with Black lives, because when you take care of Black lives, everybody's life is taken care of. Everyone's life is taken care of. So no more about these three men. It had nothing to do with President Trump.
So, like I said, Nina was not having it. First of all, I just want to address what the Congresswoman said. Well, actually, you know what? Nina did a damn good job addressing it. So I'll start with Nina's comments. So for Nina, a Black woman who was once a part of the Democratic establishment, once was an elected official, now sitting on the board of actually the president of Our Revolution, which has done a fantastic job of getting progressive candidates pushed through, including independents, by the way. For her to say, no, we're not doing this anymore, and say we're not going to try and pretend that racism started with Donald J. Trump. And she's right. And in fact, the reason she was so seemingly abrasive when she was saying these words was because, well, it's insulting to Black people. It is. Because what happens is that you attach our experiences as a race, the realities that we live every day, the realities that didn't start yesterday, didn't start in the 2016 election, hell, didn't start in the 90s, didn't start in the 60s. I mean, this is a lifetime, basically. 2-3 lifetimes, even. To attach that to one person means that eventually, if Trump were to be defeated, right, then you stop talking about the issues and race isn't important anymore. Now, do you have to wonder whether or not this would be the case? No, you don't, because we have a perfectly good example. When Obama won, all of a sudden, people thought that that glass ceiling had been broken for black people and racism was not a thing anymore. Remember, that was one of the frequent arguments used online whenever people were saying that systemic racism was imaginary and it wasn't a thing, and that racism isn't a problem anymore in this country. Because one, I don't think they understand how electoral politics or the electoral college works, but two, because they legitimately thought that if Obama could become president, then no one in the world is racist and can control your destiny based off of their racial biases, which is naive, but people believed it. Actually, I'm not even going to pretend like just white people believed it, because some black people believed it as well. They kind of thought that we were at a different space in this country and that racism wasn't as bad as it is. Now, towards the end of his presidency, it got bad because all the things that was going wrong with the country, they were blamed. The Tea Party was formed, as you all know. That encompassed both Democrats and Republicans, first of all. And then Obama never mentioning race, weirdly enough, which is one of the biggest critiques that people had of him. He never mentioned race, and yet race seemed to become one of the most dividing issues of the country by the end of his presidency. Because it turned out there were racist people in the country. They will say the most horrific things about the guy. And he wasn't a good president, in my opinion. But good God, the things that they would say about him, his family, his wife, then they will turn around and look at you and say racism isn't a problem in this country. What are you talking about? Nina hasn't forgotten about this, I'm sure. But we can look even further. We can look even further back, right? To pretend that racism didn't exist until Donald Trump got here would also mean that we're going to pretend like redlining didn't exist until pretty much didn't go away until the early 1990s, because even though it was technically as a policy removed, it was still being practiced because Nixon made it his business to continue practicing redlining. And Reagan did the same. And in practice, it was still going on. It was a bunch of lawsuits and things like that. So for those of you who don't know what redlining is, which I'm actually going to do an extensive video on this for one of my other Black History Month segments, but the long story short is Black people were not allowed to buy loans in their own neighborhoods. They were not allowed to take out a second mortgage on their homes. They weren't allowed to take out business loans. And it severely stifled the growth of the Black community. Now, once again, the ramifications of that we're still feeling the ripples of redlining. We're still feeling it. Here's the problem with that. Yeah, redlining was a problem, and it was really passed, I want to say it was passed by Republicans. But here's the issue. Redlining was prominent in places like New York, Chicago, Berkeley at one point, California, LA. Do you see a common pattern here? Yeah, these are all blue cities, deeply blue cities, which means that the Democrats, even though redlining was pushed by Republicans at the highest executive levels, by the Democrats at the local and municipal levels, they were enforcing it. They were allowed. They weren't crafting local policy and legislation to make sure that their state wasn't affected by the supposedly racist Republican president. Think about that. So when Nina says this isn't a Democrat problem nor a Republican problem, she is 100% right. When Nina says that this racism didn't start with Trump, she's 100% right. These people have been living in a bubble. They have. And I'm glad that Nina didn't say, I hate when people, or I hate when people online. No, she said, I hate. She looked at her and she tried to be as polite as possible about it, but you could tell she just was kind of fed up. But when she looked at, she said, I hate when politicians try and pretend that our problems were created by Donald Trump. Donald Trump weaponized our issues. He weaponized the anger. He weaponized the ignorance. And the Democrats could have easily won by weaponizing the truth that Bernie Sanders had represented at the time. And they refused to. Hell, remember Hillary Clinton wouldn't even say Black Lives Matter? Remember when Bernie Sanders stood up there and said, because everybody else is giving an explanation, right? Oh, well, Black lives, all lives. I want to make sure. Bernie Sanders was like, it's simple. Black Lives Matter. What's the next question, please? I don't know what the debate is. Whenever we had a chance to substantively address the prison industrial complex, which, by the way, was only called such at the time by Bernie Sanders, and no other candidate in the Democratic primary would call it the prison industrial complex. They say criminal justice reform. Once again, you can reform criminal justice however you want to. It could look worse. It could look better. That's not saying I want to get rid of private prisons, which Hillary Clinton wouldn't say because she profited off of it. You had a candidate last election who was the embodiment of everything Nina Turner is discussing right now. Hillary Clinton shrugged off Black Lives Matter activists. And the Democratic Party said nothing about it. They pretended as if Trump was somehow uniquely worse than Hillary Clinton when it came to Black lives, domestically and around the world, but they never discussed what she was doing in Haiti, what she continues to do in Haiti. They don't discuss the fact that she was in charge of that she and her husband created Confederate Flag Day, and the fact that even after the criminal bill came out to be completely and totally disastrous, Bernie Sanders apologized for his vote for that bill because he said it did not do what they thought it was intended for it to do. And then, of course, later on, we found out that there was it was basically a setup. They were setting us up to put us in prison. He apologized for that. Hillary Clinton championed it and said, I stand by my husband's decision to pass that bill. And we want to pretend like Trump was the only racist on the campaign trail, the only one who weaponized racism. Understand something. Every word that Nina said here is correct. Trump is, in all likelihood, a racist. I mean, at the very minimum, he says racist stuff all the time. At the bare minimum. But to pretend like racism originated with him, that he's somehow uniquely worse because he says some things that Hillary Clinton is better at sugarcoating, it's lunacy. It's naive. And once again, it is very offensive to those who have had to live this real struggle. The Tea Party did not get invented with Donald Trump. The Tea Party was not exclusive to Republicans. The Tea Party their whole goal was, let's make sure we do whatever we can to stop President Obama from doing anything based merely off the fact that he was Black. And this congresswoman took a real issue. I mean, the Northam issue, he was in blackface. He was a Democrat. Yeah, a Republican just got caught in Virginia for doing the same thing. All these facts embolden Nina's point. And for once, just Democrats, for once, shut the fuck up and listen when a Black woman speaks. For once. Because she's telling you. Y'all call her a traitor. Y'all have attacked her. Y'all have insulted her while trying to pretend like Kamala Harris is the actual Black candidate. Like she's actually representative of Black interests. Like she actually cares about a Black agenda, which we know she does not. And a Black woman who is connected to the Black community in a very real way, who is a positive voice in the Black community, is telling you all, You all are still getting it wrong, and you're going to lose with us again in the general election if you don't figure it out. So let's see if they finally decide to listen. Thanks for watching that segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. You can donate to our Patreon and keep helping the network grow by clicking on the link in the description below. And also, make sure you join us at JustNForm.com. And finally, make sure you subscribe to us on Roku and be part of the very first independent news network on Roku TV. But more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.